At my birthday party, my mom said loudly, "We all agree you should sell your house and give the money to your sister's baby fund, she needs it more." My cousins cheered, my dad smiled, and my sister wiped fake tears. I just opened my phone and read out loud a message that made every fork drop at the table. The restaurant felt suffocating despite its vaulted ceilings and expensive chandelier lighting. My 30th birthday party was supposed to be a quiet dinner with family, but looking around the private dining room at 18 expectant faces, I should have known better. The Ashford family never did anything quietly. My mother stood at the head of the table, wine glass raised, her perfectly manicured nails catching the light. She'd insisted on giving a toast, and I'd stupidly agreed. The first few sentences were standard birthday fare: how proud she was, how much I'd accomplished, the usual maternal platitudes that sounded hollow coming from her lips. Then her tone shifted. "But darling, there's something we need to discuss as a family." She set down her glass with deliberate care. "We've all been talking, and we think it's time you made a real contribution to this family's future." The hair on my neck stood up. Around the table, my cousins, Jessica, Tiffany, and Brandon, leaned forward with identical smirks. My sister Natalie sat beside her husband Grant, her hand resting on her still flat stomach, her expression one of practiced sadness. "Your sister is finally pregnant after years of trying," my mother continued, her voice growing louder, more theatrical. "She and Grant need to move into a proper family home, something suitable for raising children. Your house would be perfect for them." I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles went white. "Mom, what are you? We all agree you should sell your house and give the money to your sister's baby fund. She needs it more." My mother's declaration rang through the room like a verdict. "You're single, you don't have children, you don't need all that space. It's selfish to keep it when your sister is starting a family." The cousins actually applauded. Brandon whistled. My father, sitting quietly at the other end of the table, smiled, that same indulgent smile he always wore when my mother orchestrated these family ambushes. My Aunt Patricia nodded sagely, as if this was the most reasonable suggestion in the world. Natalie pulled a tissue from her purse and dabbed at dry eyes. "I didn't want to ask," she said, her voice quavering. "But we're really struggling. The fertility treatments cost so much, and now with the baby coming, we just don't have enough saved for a proper house. When Mom suggested this, I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd understand what it means to sacrifice for family." "You've always been so independent," my father added, speaking for the first time. "This would be a beautiful gesture. A way to show that family comes first." I looked around the table at these people who shared my blood. My Uncle Robert wouldn't meet my eyes. My grandmother sat silent, cutting her steak into smaller and smaller pieces. The only person who looked uncomfortable was my cousin Melissa, but even she didn't speak up. Everyone was waiting for me to crack, to give in like I always had. When Natalie needed money for her wedding, I'd contributed $5,000. When Brandon needed bail money after his DUI, I'd covered it. When my parents needed help with their mortgage after my father's investment opportunity went south, I'd written a check for $15,000 without complaint. The house they wanted me to sell? I bought it 3 years ago with money I'd saved from working 70-hour weeks at my financial consulting firm. Every penny of the down payment came from my own accounts. I'd scraped and sacrificed and lived in a studio apartment for 5 years to make it happen. The house was mine, the only thing in my life that was truly, completely mine. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out and saw an email notification from my attorney, Lawrence Martinez. The timing was almost cosmic. "You know what?" I said, standing up. My chair scraped against the floor, cutting through the expectant silence. "I actually have something to share with everyone too." My mother's face lit up, clearly expecting capitulation. "Oh, sweetheart, I knew you'd see reason. I'm going to read you an email I just received." I unlocked my phone, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "It's from my lawyer." The room went silent. Several forks clinked against plates as people set them down. I began to read aloud, my voice clear and cold. "Dear Ms. Ashford, I'm pleased to confirm that the final estate documents for your late Uncle Bernard Ashford have been processed. As his sole designated heir, you are now the legal owner of his properties, investments, and liquid assets, valued at approximately $8.3 million. Natalie's fork clattered to her plate. My mother's face drained of color. I kept reading. "The property portfolio includes the vacation home in Lake Tahoe, the investment properties in Portland and Austin, and the commercial building in downtown Seattle. The stock portfolio and remaining cash assets have been transferred to your designated accounts as of today's date. Congratulations on your inheritance." The silence that followed was deafening. I looked up from my phone, meeting my mother's horrified gaze. "Uncle Bernard?" she whispered. "When did he never mentioned. He died 6 months ago," I said simply. "We've been close for years. I visited him every month, even when he moved to the nursing home. He didn't tell anyone else in the family because, in his words, they only call when they want something. My father's face had gone red. You never said anything about an inheritance. You never asked how I was doing after Uncle Bernard passed. I picked up my wine glass, taking a slow sip. You were too busy planning Natalie's gender reveal party. Which, by the way, she's not actually pregnant with yet, since she's only 6 weeks along and that's too early to know the sex. But facts have never gotten in the way of a good party in this family. Natalie's fake tears had stopped. She looked furious. So let me get this straight, I continued, setting down my glass. You want me to sell my house, the one I bought with my own money, that I worked myself half to death for, and give the proceeds to Natalie's baby fund. How much is my house worth in your estimation, Mom? My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. The market value is probably around $600,000, $650,000, actually. I had it appraised last month. I smiled, and it felt like ice forming on my face. That's a lot of money. Certainly enough to help Natalie and Grant buy something nice. Maybe one of those new developments in the suburbs. Hope flickered in Natalie's eyes. She actually thought I was going to agree. But here's the thing, I said, my voice dropping. I already own investment properties now. Plural. I have more real estate than I know what to do with. So I've been thinking about what to do with my current house. The room held its breath. I'm going to keep it, I said. I'm going to live in it. I'm going to enjoy every single square foot of the space I earned. And you know what else? I'm going to use some of my inheritance to renovate. I'm thinking of adding a pool. Maybe a home theater. Definitely a wine cellar. My mother found her voice. You're being incredibly selfish, am I? I turned to face her fully. Let's talk about selfish. Natalie, how much did you and Grant spend on your honeymoon in Bora Bora last year? She flushed. That's not, we deserved a nice trip. $40,000, I said. I know because you complained about the credit card bills for months. You have $40,000 for a vacation but nothing saved for a house? I turned to my father. Dad, what happened to the $70,000 Grandpa left you when he died? His jaw clenched. That's none of your business. You lost it day trading penny stocks, I said flatly. Then you took out a second mortgage on your house and lost that money too. That's why you needed my help last year. My Aunt Patricia started to speak, but I cut her off. Aunt Patricia, you drive a BMW X7. Brandon, you just bought a boat. Jessica, those are Louboutin heels you're wearing, and Tiffany, that's a Cartier bracelet. But somehow, I'm the selfish one for wanting to keep the house I saved for? No one had an answer. Uncle Bernard taught me something important, I said, picking up my purse. He taught me that family isn't just about shared blood. It's about who shows up. Who cares? Who's there when it doesn't benefit them? Do you know why he left everything to me? I didn't wait for a response. Because I was the only one who visited him. The only one who called him on holidays. The only one who sat with him in that nursing home and listened to his stories and held his hand when he was scared. Not because I wanted his money, I had no idea he had that much to leave. I did it because I loved him, and because he was alone. My voice cracked slightly on the last word, but I pushed through. He told me, right before he died, that he'd watched this family bleed me dry for years. He said he was leaving me everything so that I'd finally have the security to say no. To protect myself. To stop letting all of you treat me like an ATM machine with a guilt button. I looked at each of them in turn. My mother, who'd orchestrated this whole humiliation. My father, who'd never once stood up for me. Natalie, who'd learned to weaponize tears and victimhood. The cousins who'd turned bullying me into a family sport. So here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm leaving now. I'm going to finish my birthday with people who actually care about me. You're all welcome to stay and enjoy the meal, I already paid for it. Consider it my gift to you, since apparently I owe this family everything I have. I started walking toward the door, then paused and turned back. Oh, and Natalie? Congratulations on the pregnancy. I genuinely hope everything goes well. But don't expect me to be your personal bank account for baby expenses. If you and Grant can't afford a house and a baby, maybe you should examine your spending habits instead of demanding I sacrifice my assets. You can't just walk away from family, my mother said, her voice shrill. We raised you, we fed you, you did the bare minimum required by law, I interrupted. And you've been collecting interest on that investment ever since. Well, the bank is closed. Permanently. I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. My phone started ringing before I reached my car, my mother, then Natalie, then my father. I declined every call. The valet brought my car around, and I tipped him generously, still riding the high of what I'd just done. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I caught a glimpse through the restaurant window of the chaos I'd left behind. My mother was standing, gesturing wildly. Natalie had her face in her hands. Perfect. The drive home took 20 minutes. My hands shook on the steering wheel, adrenaline finally catching up with me. I'd spent 30 years bending myself into shapes to please these people, and in 30 seconds, I'd burn it all down. Halfway home, my phone rang again. This time it was Aunt Patricia. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Do you have any idea what you've done? She screeched before I could even say hello. Your mother is hysterical. Natalie is having a panic attack. How could you be so selfish? Aunt Patricia, I said calmly, keeping my eyes on the road, did you know that Uncle Bernard left me his estate? Silence. Did you even know he died 6 months ago? More silence. When was the last time you called him? Visited him? Sent him a card? That's not, he was your uncle, not mine, he was my brother-in-law. He was a human being who died alone except for the one family member who bothered to show up. I cut her off. And now you're calling to yell at me for not financing Natalie's lifestyle? Goodbye, Patricia. I hung up and blocked her number too. The texts kept coming. I glanced at them at red lights, each one more desperate or angry than the last. Brandon sent, "You're dead to this family." Jessica wrote, "Hope you enjoy your money since you clearly love it more than us." My father's message was short, "Your mother is devastated. I hope you're proud of yourself." But there was one message that made me pause. It was from my grandmother, who'd been silent at the dinner table. "Your grandfather would have been proud of you tonight. Call me when you're ready." I stared at those words for a long moment before tucking my phone away. My grandmother had always been different from the rest of them, quieter, more observant. She'd been married to my mother's father, who died when I was 12. I remembered him as kind, with a dry sense of humor that my mother seemed to have missed inheriting entirely. When I got home, I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes, just breathing. The porch light was on, I'd left it on this morning, never imagining how different everything would be by the time I returned. My house looked the same, but I felt fundamentally changed. Inside, I kicked off my heels and poured myself that whiskey. The silence of my house was beautiful. No one demanding anything. No one judging me. No one calculating what they could extract from me next. I pulled up my email and read Lawrence Martinez's message again, this time more carefully. There were attachments, detailed breakdowns of the properties, the investment accounts, the stocks. Uncle Bernard had been meticulous. Each asset was documented, organized, transferred cleanly into my name. There was also a personal note from Lawrence at the bottom of the email, "Your uncle left a sealed letter for you. I'll have it couriered to your home address tomorrow. He was very specific that you should receive it after the estate was settled." A letter. From Uncle Bernard. I hadn't known about that. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail from my mother. I deleted it without listening. Then another text came through, this one from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Grant. Natalie is really upset. She's pregnant and stressed and this isn't good for the baby. Whatever issues you have with the family, can you please think about your niece or nephew?" I laughed out loud. Grant, who'd barely said 2 words to me in the 3 years he'd been married to my sister, was now lecturing me about family responsibility. I typed back, "Grant, Natalie is 6 weeks pregnant. The stress from this conversation isn't going to harm a pregnancy at this stage. But you know what is stressful? Being ambushed at your own birthday party and told to give up your assets. Tell Natalie she can reach out when she's ready to apologize. Until then, leave me alone." I blocked his number too. The thing about finally standing up for yourself is that it feels terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Part of me kept waiting for the guilt to hit, for the familiar weight of obligation to settle back onto my shoulders. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in years. I opened my laptop and started going through my finances with fresh eyes. The inheritance changed everything. I'd been planning to work another 15 years before I could even think about early retirement. Now? I could retire tomorrow if I wanted to. Not that I would, I actually enjoyed my work, but the option existed. That alone was worth more than any dollar amount. The Lake Tahoe property interested me most. I pulled up the listing information Lawrence had included. It was a 4-bedroom cabin right on the lake, with a private dock and mountain views. Uncle Bernard had bought it in the 70s for a fraction of what it was worth now. According to the documents, he'd spent summers there with my aunt before she passed away. I'd been there once, when I was 8. I remembered crystal clear water and pine trees and Uncle Bernard teaching me to skip stones. My parents had cut the visit short because my mother got into an argument with Aunt Claire about something I was too young to understand. We never went back. Now it was mine. I could go there whenever I wanted. I could spend entire summers there if I chose. The thought made me smile. My doorbell rang, startling me out of my reverie. It was nearly 10 at night. I checked the security camera and saw my mother standing on my porch, my father behind her. I didn't open the door. "I know you're in there," my mother called out. "We need to talk about this. You can't just drop a bomb like that and walk away." I turned off the porch light and the hallway light. Sat perfectly still in the dark living room. "This is ridiculous." My father's voice joined in. "Open the door. We're your parents." I texted them both, "Leave now or I'm calling the police for trespassing." Through the camera, I watched my mother's face cycle through shock, anger, and finally something that might have been fear. My father put a hand on her shoulder, said something I couldn't hear. They left. My house looked beautiful in the evening light. The craftsman-style exterior, the garden I'd planted myself, the porch swing where I drank coffee every morning. This was mine. I'd earned it. And I was keeping it. Inside, I poured myself a real drink, not the expensive wine from dinner, but the cheap whiskey I actually liked, and sat on my couch. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text messages flooded in. From my mother, "How dare you embarrass this family like that? Call me immediately." From Natalie, "I can't believe you would be so cruel to a pregnant woman. Mom is right about you." From my father, "Your mother is very upset. You owe her an apology." From Jessica, "Wow, didn't know you were such a bitch." I blocked them all. Every single number. Then I scrolled to a different contact and hit call. "Hey stranger," came the warm voice of my best friend Ashley. "How was the family birthday dinner? Can I come over?" I asked. "Always. I'll open wine." Ashley lived 15 minutes away in a cozy townhouse with her husband Derek and their daughter Emma. When I arrived, Emma, my goddaughter, threw herself at my legs. "Auntie. Happy birthday. We made you a cake." It was lopsided and covered in too much frosting and absolutely perfect. We ate cake and I told them everything. Ashley's eyes got wider and wider. 8.3 million? She whispered after Emma had gone to bed. "Give or take," I said. "I'm still processing it myself." "And you never mentioned Uncle Bernard left you anything?" "I didn't know until 3 months after he died. Apparently he updated his will 6 months before that, but the estate took forever to settle. His lawyer only contacted me recently." Derek shook his head. "Your family is unbelievable. They ambushed you about selling your house without knowing you just inherited a fortune?" "The timing is almost poetic," Ashley said. "What are you going to do now?" I thought about it, swirling the wine in my glass. "Honestly? I'm going to live my life. Maybe travel. Maybe start my own consulting firm instead of working for someone else. Uncle Bernard's gift wasn't just money, it was freedom." "Are you going to reconcile with him?" Derek asked carefully. "Would you?" I countered. He was quiet for a moment. "No. Probably not." The text continued for days. My mother left voicemails ranging from angry to pleading to victimized. Natalie sent a long message about how I was ruining her chance at happiness. My father tried the disappointed routine. Various cousins and aunts and uncles weighed in, mostly telling me I was selfish and cruel. I didn't respond to any of them. What I did do was contact Lawrence Martinez about setting up a trust. Not for my family, for causes I cared about. Education funds for underprivileged kids. Nursing home support programs. Scholarships in Uncle Bernard's name. I also contacted a financial advisor about the investment properties. Turned out Uncle Bernard had been quite savvy. The Portland property alone generated $30,000 a year in rental income. 2 weeks after my birthday, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hi, this is Melissa." My cousin's voice was hesitant. "I got your new number from Ashley. I hope that's okay." "What do you want, Melissa?" "Nothing. I wanted to apologize. For not speaking up at your birthday. That was wrong what they did. All of it." I was silent, waiting. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," she continued. "About Uncle Bernard and who shows up. I realized I haven't been showing up either. Not for you, and not for him when he was alive. I'm ashamed of that." "Okay," I said, my voice neutral. "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I don't want money or help or anything. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. And I'm sorry I've been part of the problem." We talked for an hour. It turned out Melissa had her own complicated feelings about the family dynamics, the favoritism, the constant drama. She'd stayed quiet to avoid becoming a target herself. "They're saying terrible things about you," she admitted. "Mom called you ungrateful. Natalie is telling everyone you're sabotaging her pregnancy. Your mom is playing the victim, saying she doesn't know where she went wrong raising you." "Sounds about right," I said dryly. For what it's worth, I think you're the healthiest person in this family. You got out. You set boundaries. I wish I was brave enough to do the same. You could be, I told her. The door is always open if you want to walk through it. She hesitated before speaking again. Can I ask you something? About Uncle Bernard? Sure. What was he like? At the end, I mean. I feel awful that I never visited. I settled deeper into my couch, remembering. He was scared sometimes. The nursing home was nice enough, but it wasn't home. He missed Aunt Claire, talked about her like she'd just stepped out of the room. He'd get confused occasionally, forget what year it was. But mostly he was still himself. Still sharp, still funny. I should have been there, Melissa said quietly. You should have, I agreed, not sugarcoating it. But beating yourself up now doesn't change anything. What matters is what you do going forward. Did he ever ask about the rest of us? Sometimes. I'd tell him everyone was busy. He'd just nod, like he understood exactly what that meant. I paused. The last time I saw him, about a week before he died, he told me something. He said, the people who matter show up on regular Tuesdays, not just holidays and emergencies. I think about that a lot now. Melissa was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, I've been showing up on all the wrong days, haven't I? That's something only you can answer. We hung up with tentative plans to have coffee the following week. I didn't know if Melissa and I would end up close, but at least someone in my family was capable of self-reflection. The next morning, a courier arrived with a thick envelope from Lawrence Martinez's office. Inside was Uncle Bernard's letter. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat down at my kitchen table, and opened it with shaking hands. The handwriting was shaky but unmistakably his. I recognized it from the birthday cards he'd sent me every year. Dear one, it began. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you know about the money. I imagine your mother and sister had some strong opinions about that. Probably your father too, though he's always let your mother do the talking. I want you to understand why I did this. It wasn't to cause trouble, though I suspect it will. It was to give you something I never had, the freedom to choose your own path without constantly worrying about money or obligation. I watched your family take from you for years. The wedding money for Natalie. The bail for Brandon. The mortgage help for your parents. Every time, you gave without complaint, and every time, they took without gratitude. They saw your generosity as weakness, your kindness as obligation. You remind me so much of your Aunt Claire. She had the same quiet strength, the same tendency to put everyone else first. After she died, I realized how much of herself she'd given away trying to keep everyone happy. She'd wanted to go back to school, did you know that? To study art history. But there was always something more important, someone else who needed her time or money or energy. By the time she got sick, she'd spent 40 years living for other people. In the hospital, she told me her biggest regret was all the dreams she deferred. All the times she said someday instead of now. I don't want that for you. You're 30 years old, the same age Claire was when she gave up on grad school because my brother needed help with his business. You have time to live differently, but only if you give yourself permission. The money is yours to do with as you please. Travel. Start a business. Buy a ridiculous sports car if you want. Or just keep it in the bank and enjoy the security of knowing you'll never have to choose between your own well-being and someone else's demands. But more than the money, I hope I've given you permission to say no. To put yourself first. To understand that family who only shows up when they need something isn't really family at all. You visited me every month. You called every week. You sat with an old man and listened to his boring stories and made him feel less alone. You did that not because you wanted anything from me, but because you cared. That's who you are, someone who shows up. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting that kindness. The world needs more people like you, but you need to make sure there's enough of you left to share. Live well, dear one. Live boldly. Live for yourself. All my love, Uncle Bernard. P.S. The cabin in Tahoe was Claire's favorite place. I think she'd be happy knowing you have it now. I cried reading that letter. Deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere I'd kept locked away for years. Uncle Bernard had seen me, really seen me, in a way my own parents never had. The letter stayed on my kitchen table for days. I'd read it in the morning with my coffee, reminding myself why I'd done what I'd done. Why I had to hold firm even when the guilt tried to creep back in. Because it did try. Despite everything, despite the ambush and the manipulation and the years of being taken for granted, part of me still wanted to fix things. To smooth it over. To make everyone happy. That's what I've been trained to do, after all. The family peacekeeper. The reliable one. The one who could always be counted on to put her own needs last. But Uncle Bernard's letter reminded me that putting myself last had never earned me respect or appreciation. It had just taught everyone that I would always be there to exploit. 3 days after the birthday disaster, my grandmother called. I answered, curious about her earlier text. "Come have tea with me," she said without preamble. "Tomorrow at 2. Just you and me." "Does Mom know you're calling?" "Your mother doesn't run my life," she said sharply. "Do you want to come or not?" "I'll be there." My grandmother lived in a small cottage she'd moved to after my grandfather died. It was filled with plants and books and furniture she'd chosen herself, nothing like the showpiece houses my mother preferred. She answered the door with a slight smile and ushered me inside. The tea was already made, set out on her small kitchen table with homemade cookies. "You look good," she said, studying my face. "Better than you have in years, actually." "I feel good," I admitted. Also terrified and guilty and angry and free, but mostly good. She nodded like this made perfect sense. "Your grandfather would have handled that dinner the same way. He never had patience for manipulation." We sat down, and she poured the tea with steady hands. At 83, she was still sharp as a tack. "Bernard called me," she said. "About 6 months before he died. Told me he was leaving you everything. Asked me not to tell anyone." I froze with my teacup halfway to my mouth. "He did?" "He wanted my advice on whether it would cause too much family drama. I told him it absolutely would, and that he should do it anyway." She smiled. "Your mother has always been like this, entitled, demanding, unable to see past her own wants. I love her because she's my daughter, but I'm not blind to her faults." "Why didn't you ever say anything?" "All those times she pressured me. Because you needed to find your own way out," she interrupted gently. "If I'd fought your battles for you, you would have just found new battles to lose. You had to reach your limit yourself." It made sense, even though part of me wished she'd intervened years ago. "Your mother called me the night of your party," my grandmother continued. "Absolutely hysterical. Demanded I talk sense into you, make you see reason, convince you to help your sister. I told her no." "What did she say?" "A lot of things I won't repeat. Some accusations about me turning you against the family. Threats to cut me off if I didn't get on board." She sipped her tea calmly. I reminded her that I'm 83 years old and have my own money. What exactly was she going to cut me off from? Her charming presence? I couldn't help but laugh. "The thing about your mother," my grandmother said, "is that she's always seen her children as extensions of herself rather than separate people. Your success was supposed to reflect well on her. Your resources were supposed to be available to the family. She genuinely doesn't understand why you won't share." "Did she ever ask how I got the money for my house? How I could afford to help everyone all the time? Did she ever ask how you were doing, period?" My grandmother countered. "Fair point." A month passed. Natalie had her first ultrasound and posted it on social media with a lengthy caption about how blessed she was to have such a supportive husband and family. I wasn't tagged. I didn't comment. My mother sent a birthday card to my office. My home address had changed, and I hadn't given her the new one. Inside was a guilt trip disguised as sentimentality about how families should stick together through thick and thin. I threw it away. What I didn't throw away was the letter from the nursing home where Uncle Bernard had lived. They were holding a memorial event for residents who'd passed away that year, and they'd asked if I wanted to say a few words about him. I went. I stood in front of a room of elderly people and staff members and talked about my uncle, his terrible jokes, his love of old Western movies, his habit of saving the comics from the newspaper to show me when I visited. I talked about how he taught me that kindness doesn't require an audience, and that the people who really matter are the ones who show up on ordinary days. Afterward, an elderly woman approached me. Her name tag said Martha. "You're Bernard's niece," she said. "He talked about you all the time. He was so proud of you." My throat tightened. "Thank you. He told me once that you were the only one who treated him like a person instead of an obligation. He said you gave him purpose in those last years." She patted my hand. "That inheritance he left you? He wanted you to have it. He told me so. Said you were the only one who deserved it." I cried in my car for 20 minutes after leaving. 3 months after my birthday, I was settling into my new normal. I cut back my hours at work and started seriously planning my own consulting business. The house renovations were underway, no pool, but I was converting the basement into a home office and library. Ashley and Derek invited me to Emma's 7th birthday party. It was everything my family gatherings weren't: warm, genuine, full of laughter that didn't have cruelty underneath it. "You look happy," Ashley said, watching me help Emma open presents. "I am," I realized. "I really am. No regrets about cutting them off?" I thought about my mother's manipulation, my father's enablement, Natalie's entitlement, the cousin's casual cruelty. I thought about every guilt trip, every demand, every time I'd swallowed my own needs to keep the peace. "Not even one," I said. That evening, I got an email from Melissa. She'd had coffee with me several times by now, slowly building a relationship independent of the family drama. Her message was short: just wanted you to know, I told my mom I won't be attending family dinners anymore if they're going to spend the whole time bad-mouthing you. She was shocked. Thanks for showing me it's possible to set boundaries. I smiled and sent back a heart emoji. The truth was, losing my family of origin hurt less than I'd expected. Maybe because I'd been grieving the family I wished I had for years. The one that showed up, that cared, that saw me as more than a resource to exploit. What I'd gained was more valuable than what I'd lost. Peace. Autonomy. The ability to look at my bank account without anxiety. The knowledge that my house was mine, my life was mine, my choices were mine. Uncle Bernard had given me more than money. He'd given me permission to value myself. To walk away from people who diminished me. To understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in your own mistreatment. 6 months after my birthday, I was reviewing contracts for my new consulting firm when my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. It was Natalie, now visibly pregnant. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won out. What do you want? I asked through the door, not opening it. Can we talk? Please. Against my better judgment, I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She looked tired. The pregnancy glow people talked about was notably absent. I owe you an apology, she said. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Natalie? You ambushed me at my own birthday party and demanded I sell my house for you. You played the victim when I refused. You've spent months telling everyone who'll listen that I'm a terrible person. An apology is the bare minimum, and frankly, I'm not sure I believe it. Her eyes filled with tears, real ones this time, I thought. Grant left me. I blinked. What? He said he didn't want to be a father. That he only went along with the pregnancy because I pressured him. He moved out last week. She wiped her eyes. I'm 8 months pregnant and alone, and I don't know what to do. Part of me, the old me, wanted to invite her in, to comfort her, to fix it. But I'd learned better. I'm sorry you're going through that, I said. But I'm not the person to help you. You're my sister. I'm the sister you tried to manipulate into giving up her house. The sister you've treated like an ATM for years. The sister you publicly humiliated. I kept my voice level. You made choices, Natalie. You have to live with the consequences. I was wrong, she said. About everything. I see that now. I've been spoiled and entitled and I took you for granted. I'm sorry. I appreciate the apology, I said. But it doesn't change anything. I can't be your safety net anymore. You need to figure this out yourself. What am I supposed to do? The same thing I did when I needed a house, I said. Work for it. Save for it. Make sacrifices. You're about to be a parent, Natalie. It's time to grow up. I closed the door on her shocked face and walked back inside. It sounds harsh, typing it out now. But I've learned something important: rescuing people from their own consequences doesn't help them. It just teaches them that someone will always clean up their messes. 2 weeks after that encounter, I moved to a new house, one of Uncle Bernard's investment properties that I'd fallen in love with. It was in a different neighborhood, more private, with better security. I didn't give my family the new address. Melissa texted me after the move, heard Natalie came by your old place looking for you. You okay? Yeah, I wrote back. I'm good. And I was. Better than good, actually. My consulting firm was taking off. I'd started dating someone, a kind man named Thomas who worked in environmental science and had no interest in my money. My new house was exactly how I wanted it. I'd moved into one of Uncle Bernard's properties, a beautiful place with better security and more privacy than my original home. Sometimes I thought about that birthday dinner. The expectant faces, the casual cruelty, the absolute certainty they all had that I would fold. The look on their faces when I read that email would sustain me for years. Uncle Bernard's lawyer called one afternoon to check in. How are you managing everything? Lawrence Martinez asked. Better than expected, I admitted. Uncle Bernard knew what he was doing. He did, Lawrence agreed. He told me, when we were updating the will, that he hoped his gift would give you the courage to live authentically. To stop shrinking yourself to fit other people's expectations. Mission accomplished, I said. I donated $100,000 in Uncle Bernard's name to the nursing home where he'd lived, funding improvements to their common areas and activities programs. I set up college funds for Emma and for Melissa's kids. I traveled to Italy for 3 weeks, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time or money for. And every morning, I woke up in my new house, the investment property I'd claimed as my own, beautiful and private and completely secure, and felt grateful. My mother made one last attempt to reconcile, sending a long letter about family bonds and forgiveness. She didn't apologize for the birthday ambush. She didn't acknowledge any wrongdoing. She just wanted things to go back to normal, which meant me funding their lifestyle while they criticized mine. I didn't respond. The last I heard, Natalie had moved back in with our parents. Grant was fighting the child support case. The family still got together for holidays, presumably finding someone else to criticize and exploit. I spent Thanksgiving with Ashley's family and Christmas volunteering at a shelter. New Year's Eve was a quiet dinner with Thomas, talking about plans for the future. This is the life Uncle Bernard wanted for me. Not defined by obligation or guilt or the endless task of earning love from people incapable of giving it freely. A life where I could breathe, and choose and build something that was mine. Every choice has a cost. Cutting off my family cost me the fantasy that they would ever be different, that they would ever see me as more than a resource. But what I gained, peace, freedom, self-respect, was worth infinitely more than what I lost. Sometimes people ask if I regret being so harsh at that birthday dinner. If I wish I'd handled it differently. I don't. Because anything less than complete honesty would have left room for them to weasel back in. To minimize what they'd done. To make it my responsibility to smooth things over and pretend it never happened. Reading that email aloud, watching their faces fall, walking out of that restaurant, those were the moments I finally chose myself. And I would make the same choice every single time.